Host on First Take. To continue to listen to him, subscribe to the First Take podcast in the Listen tab of the ESPN app.
Happy Friday, everybody. You made it to the weekend. Next week, First Take hits the road for NFL training camp. We cannot wait. We're going to be with the Jets, Steelers, Washington, and the Bucks. Be sure to catch it all on ESPN2 at 10 a.m. Eastern. But right now, Drew Brees, RG3, Chip Kelly, and the NFL's most hated list lead our topics. Let's get into it.
Let's get it cracking. Let's start the session. March list the competition, balls by that action. You can never debate it. This is actual fact. Stephen A. and Max Kellerman said they say it's a rap. I'm like, say what? Say what? What's up with all my haters? I'm a ball when I perform. So my jersey's in the air. I'm allergic to my haters. Every morning I prepare. Lot of clothes I can wear just like them Oregon players. Yeah, quack, quack. What it do? Rap like it's nothing to it. Matter of fact, you can ask hard and I'm cooking too. Base guard cooking too. Nah, look at you. Great mind. They embrace mine like a crooked tooth. 4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, stop me. 4 takes, that's you. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, you got me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into First Take on this Feel Good Friday, almost to the weekend. But first, we are going to get you set. Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith. I'm
What's up?
Karam.
My man. What's
How
up, you?
doing?
How you doing?
I'm great. The weekend, I'm feeling good.
We can't be the only ones who don't do something.
Do what you want to do.
Yeah. Y'all got to come up with your own thing.
Yeah.
That's all.
One of these.
It ain't that hard.
I like that.
It ain't that hard, y'all. See, that worked.
Yeah.
I'm proud of y'all.
Oh, thank you.
Proud of y'all.
Thank you for that.
Wait.
Let's go. Coming up, the Sporting News released their list of the NFL's most hated players of all times. Wait till you guys see this list, and the guys have some big issues with it. But first, Browns wide receiver Josh Gordon is very optimistic and grateful for his new support staff in Cleveland, especially Robert Griffin III. Gordon saying this, quote, "He's the reason why I committed to Baylor in 2009. That's one of my best friends. It's not a mistake that my locker is next to his. He looks out for me as part of my support staff I've been mentioning. Guys I know I can lean on. I know he's a big brother in that regard." Meanwhile, Browns' new head coach Hugh Jackson is not into the waiting game. Jackson said he plans to announce a starting quarterback between RG3 and Josh McCown before the team's first preseason game, which I love, so we know the deal. Stephen A., so how good can the Browns be with Gordon and RG3 potentially?
Pretty much close to what they were last year, which is not very good. I think that Hugh Jackson is going to do an exceptional job. I think that the foundation between him, with Sashi Brown, with DePodesta, even though those weren't quintessential football guys, I think the elements that they're bringing to the table is something that can't be ignored. They're definitely going to be moving in the right direction. When I say that I think it's more of the same, I'm talking about in terms of results, Max. I'm talking about in terms of a win-loss record. Do I think they'll go 3-13? Perhaps not. More like 5-11, something along those lines. That is what I see. And I think that's being very, very generous, because when you look at RG3, there's a lot to be proven. As far as I'm concerned, he hasn't really been playing ball in 2 years. And so when you look at it from that perspective, along with the hit psychologically that he took, I think Hugh Jackson is the perfect complement to him. I think that's a plus. But at the same time, I don't know, because of the absence of weapons the Cleveland Browns have. They're not the same team right now. Some of the parts that you would like them to have, Josh Gordon is going to have to be that dude. We know that he's a stud. I think he's a Hall of Fame talent. But let's face reality here. He's got some issues. And don't tell me that when you are the Cleveland Browns and you are a team that loses Dante Whitner, Dwayne Bowe, Carlos Dansby, and all of these other guys, you've subtracted a lot of veterans from your locker room. By doing so, that puts more pressure on RG3, who has his own stuff to live up to, let alone trying to elevate himself to being that quintessential leader that you can feed off of, because he galvanizes and inspires the troops. Then we get to the issue of Josh Gordon, which is the reason we're asking this question to begin with, because without Josh Gordon, we wouldn't even be thinking about them. We'd be saying they're going to stink up the joint, they're going to be sorry, and that is that. But with Josh Gordon and the potential that he has and the chemistry that he had with RG3 in college, I can understand. But that was a long time ago. And, yeah, it's good that he's not hanging with Johnny Manziel right now, because Johnny Manziel, RG3 is clearly a significant upgrade from an individual, from a maturity perspective, than Johnny Manziel is. But this is the National Football League. This is the NFL. And this is a man's game. And the fact is that before he could think about ingratiating himself with his former collegiate teammate, the bottom line is simple. You got to ball. And you got to stay clean. And I think that's a lot to put on the shoulders of RG3 when it comes to Josh Gordon. I don't expect much. I know they can play, but I don't expect much. I'm thinking 5-11, Cleveland Browns with Josh Gordon. I am praying completing the season once he comes back from his suspension, as opposed to getting himself in trouble again.
Look, if you're playing the odds, probably right. You know, you're not going to be a 500 team. I think they'll be better than last year if you're playing the odds. But the question is, because you can't say this about every team, if everything goes right for them, for example, the Miami Heat last year, you say if everything went right for them, they could be in the conference finals, and who knows who gets out of the conference. Everything has to go right. Right. You say, well, you can say that about any team. No, you can't. There are lots of teams about which you can't say, you know, you can say everything goes right, still they're not going to do anything. Some teams, if everything goes right. Now, why does this apply to the Browns? First of all, let's start with Gordon. Mm-hmm. The change has to come from within. It can't just be external pressure. Hey, you need to change, you need to change, you need to change. He has to initiate it. He needs to seek help. Now, he's hanging out with Johnny Manziel. That's a bad look, etc. But he goes to the team and says, I need a change. That's a very good sign. Even him hanging out with Johnny Manziel at a certain point, you say, and then Josh Gordon comes out and says, you know, I hang out with Manziel, but I want to be close to RG3. This is the guy. I see the way these two, Manziel's not a quarterback anymore, but guys go about their work, and I can be friends with this guy, which actually endears Josh Gordon to me. It means he doesn't forget his friends just because they're struggling, as the rest of us are kind of perceiving that as, boy, you're around a bad influence. Yeah. In his mind, he's trying to be a good influence on Manziel. I commend that. But he looks at RG3 and says, but he's had success in the NFL. I want to be close to him. So I like that. I like those indications that it's an internal change, at least that's being sought by Josh Gordon. Now, the question is, what can the team do? Stephen A. I start with the offensive line. The offensive line is the only part of the NFL, of the game of football, that affects every single other part of the game, right? Okay. If you have a great offensive line, it turns mediocre running backs into good running backs. It turns receivers into better receivers. It keeps their defense on the field. It makes their defense worse. It makes their secondary worse. It makes your quarterback better. So look at that offensive line, anchored by Joe Thomas, who may be the best offensive lineman in the game. I mean, he's in the conversation. At 31 years old means really he's still in his prime. Sometimes like left tackles hit their prime around 31. All right. Pro Football Focus has them as the 5th in their offensive line rankings, 5. So how does that apply to Gordon, to Josh Gordon, and RG3 specifically? Mm-hmm. Well, what can RG3 still do? Stretch vertical passing, stretch vertical yards. Same thing with Josh Gordon. I called Casey Joyner, the football scientist, this morning. Casey, am I crazy or can they do something? He said, Max, I think if they stay healthy, they have a chance to be a top 5 stretch vertical quarterback receiver combination. You put a top 5 stretch vertical quarterback receiver combination on a team with an offensive line that's in the top 5. Don't tell me they can't make the playoffs, because they can. Well, you're blowing me away with this, because I'm not even thinking about Josh Gordon when you say something like that. I'm not thinking about him because I'm thinking about his talent, and I know that it's there. Can he get, if he's on a football field, can he get open against other corners in this game? Of course he can. He's Josh Gordon. But I do think you're bloviating a bit excessively about RG3. What the hell is this? I mean, you're acting like RG3 is fresh off of a good season, and it's just that the team is suspect. So because of that, along with Josh Gordon, we've got a reason to be suspect about them. We have a reason to be suspect about RG3. Now, I will confess that I do believe he's taken too many hits from the standpoint of a personal level, where people are attacking him like he was a criminal or a drug addict or something. That's not RG3. RG3 is a good dude in terms of that. Being mature enough to know how to conduct himself, doesn't get in any kind of trouble or anything like that. Parents, military, like all that kind of discipline stuff. He's to be commended for all of that. But RG3, the quarterback, remember, he was a running quarterback when he came into the league and was phenomenal as a rookie, scaring the daylights out of you as a Giants fan, no question. But then after that, he goes into Mike Shanahan's office. He determines that he wants to be a pocket
passer. He doesn't want to go out there and use his mobility, his legs, his athleticism to make things happen. And he was a bit suspect. Now, we didn't like the extreme measures that Jay Gruden, the coach of the Washington Redskins, his former coach, went through in terms of dissecting RG3, talking about what he's doing wrong, 3-step, drop, 5-step drop, reading through his progressions. And that's the excessiveness in terms of the details with which he highlighted the deficiencies of RG3 was downright insulting. Not because he was inaccurate, but because we hadn't seen a coach so publicly deride his quarterback the way that Jay Gruden had done at that particular moment in time. Having said all of that, Jay Gruden didn't appear to be wrong. The things that he was saying about RG3 appeared to be at least somewhat accurate. And so when you take that into consideration, I'm saying you go to Cleveland, and I said this, Max, before they acquired him and when they acquired him. Here's my thing about Cleveland. City's great. Fans are fantastic. All of that stuff is true. That cold weather coming off of Lake Erie, bro. My man, let me tell you, you call me whatever you want. Let me tell you something right now. I still have a hard time talking to LeBron. I still have a hard time saying anything to him other than hi and bye because he left South Beach for this, for Cleveland.
And
that weather. Listen, you could say it's different, but that wind and that cold coming off of Lake Erie, right? And the football field, at least the Q, the Quickens Loans Arena, is downtown. I mean, Lake Erie is right on the stadium is right on the water. I mean, it's coming fresh off you. I'm just saying.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
Listen, I'm saying to you, not for RG3, the quarterback.
Listen, sometimes I see these warm weather teams like the Chargers. I'm like, come playoff time, they're at a disadvantage. They don't have to deal with the elements. And that kind of like lack of adaptation to the elements maybe sometimes hurts them when they do have to adapt.
I feel you on that for most. But I'm saying for an unproven pocket passer,
I want to talk about
RG3, that's my concern. Go ahead.
I want to talk about that. You're right. RG3 scared the hell out of me when he was a rookie. In fact, as a Giants fan, I didn't think very much of Washington as a team, but he was the most feared player for me as a Giants fan watching those games. I didn't fear any player in the NFL as much, forget about more, as I feared RG3 as a rookie. He was completely unstoppable. Now, he's not that same guy anymore. Injuries, lost half a step, and it's gotten into his head, and you're right, maybe he went too far in the other direction and wants to be something that, he doesn't use all his weapons, or he's somehow caught in between, whatever it is psychologically with him. The question with RG3, it's not like a guy, their previous, would-be hero, Johnny Manziel, where we'd never seen him do it on an NFL level. We just didn't know if it was there. We suspected it might be, but we didn't know. RG3 has already done it on an NFL level like very few have ever done it out the gate. I mean, he was already an excellent NFL quarterback as a rookie.
Can I interject?
So it's in there somewhere.
Let me interject before I let you go on to tell you why I disagree with that point. I believe that RG3, the rookie, is entirely different than the RG3 who's gone 5-15 over a 2-year period as a starter before being benched last year. I think you combine that with them sitting him on the bench, not even allowing him to wear a uniform, okay, because they didn't want to put themselves in a position where he could get hurt and they'd have to pay him and all of this other stuff. That RG3 you're talking about is 3 years ago. The RG3 that has existed in the NFL since is an entirely different individual. Go ahead.
Agreed. No question. And that's why I'm saying the odds are they're not going to be 500. I think they'll be better than last year. I think you think that too. But they have a chance to be good. They have a chance to compete for the playoffs. And you bring up, Mike, you bring up the fact that as a rookie he's good. It has been several years already. He's not the same. Okay, that's valid. But now he has a second chance. And he's already at an age, given the water under the bridge, where RG3 might be looking at this second chance thinking, if I don't ball right now, I just become one of these retread guys. He's not there yet. There was a little competition for his services. Not enough, not a lot. They bought low, but at least the thought is still, look, maybe a change of scenery. This is it for him in terms of not being thought of as just a pure reclamation project, retread in the NFL. And physically, how much different is he? He's not as fast, but he's faster than most. He's still got a hell of an arm. He can still throw it down the field, especially down the field with some accuracy given the distance on the throws.
He's got a slide.
Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon, who was Odell Beckham before there was an Odell Beckham in terms of his impact on the league.
We're talking about a Browns organization allergic to prosperity, even though we believe that they are heading in the right direction because I like what they have, the Sashi Brown, the Podesta, and
they run block pretty well, too.
They run block pretty well because, again, that's true, because with Duke Johnson, Isaiah Crowe before, the bottom line is they were running the football. Duke Johnson is still there. We'll see how effective they're going to be. But here's the thing. Max Kellerman, and I'll say this in deference to Dr. Phil, Dr. Max, it's lovely hearing you philosophize about RG3. It's really nice. Here's the question. You brought up everything but one important thing. Who are you playing against? I'm sorry, that would be Pittsburgh Steelers, that would be the Baltimore Ravens, that would be the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm talking about superior teams. You also forgot to mention the fact that Josh Gordon, they're all getting healthier. Josh Gordon isn't coming back until Game 5. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Am I saying that? So that's 4. So this is a team. Let me get this straight. This is a team that usually loses anyway. And now this dude is going to be gone for the first 4 games?
So let's say when you look at the 4 games,
and what do you think's going to happen to RG3 in those first 4 games?
You're expecting 1 and 3-ish. I think they're going to protect him pretty well. If he wants to stay in the pocket, I think they're going to protect him pretty well. And by the way, if the protection breaks down, they're a few better at getting away from pass rushers if he decides to run.
They may not.
The major thing is him staying healthy.
Actually, RG3 is not elusive. He's fast.
He's fast.
He's fast in the open field, but he's not elusive. He's not Michael Vick elusive.
However, that offensive line, like Manziel, who a couple of years ago, rushed for, he was the 3rd leading rusher on the team.
He's more elusive than RG3.
But a lot slower.
Okay, but he's more elusive in terms of in the pocket. So what I'm saying to you is RG3 may not find himself getting sacked because the offensive line may protect him enough where he can get the ball loose, but it's not going to stop him from getting hit. And what about his durability? That is a huge question mark. So you got his durability, you got his pocket passing ability, you got the fact that he's reluctant to use his athleticism to be more mobile. Then you've got personnel issues.
You also haven't mentioned the defense, which ain't that good.
How about that?
Yeah, the defense ain't that good. You're talking about what is most likely to happen. I'm talking about the fact that there is tremendous upside here. For the reasons you mentioned, you're right. If someone said push come to shove, are they going to win 8 games? I would say no. But if you're asking, could they win 8 games or 9 games, push for a wild card?
Hell no.
Yes, they could.
No.
That is entirely
in the
possible.
AFC North?
It's impossible.
I'm going to use the word impossible. There is no way. I put myself on that.
Don't sleep on a team with a good coach, an excellent offensive line, and a vertical stretch passing threat.
Listen. The third point that you made is what I find highly questionable. Do I believe Hugh Jackson's a good coach? You're damn right I do. Didn't stop Oakland from going 8-8, and they were better than the Cleveland Browns team he has right now. That offensive line, obviously, it's good, but I recall a team with an elite offensive line in the Dallas Cowboys. How did they do last year? Don't get me started. Philadelphia Eagles had a decent offensive line. How did they do last year?
Top 5, maybe.
Let me tell you, I'm just saying, there are plenty of teams with good offensive line, but what happened to them? So don't give me that. All right, and then a vertical passing game. You're acting like it's a given.
No, I'm saying there's a chance.
There's a chance they could make a splash.
Oh, stop it.
There was a chance that he could have gotten out of the Eastern Conference last year. Everything had to go right, but there was a chance. Can't say that about everyone.
There's a chance my head.
I didn't know this was highly questionable.
There's a chance my headline will grow about 3 inches forward. I doubt it. It's going to happen.
Happened to LeBron. It happened to you. It happened to LeBron.
There's a chance. Okay.
We stay in the NFL. Drew Brees looking for a contract extension, but it appears his age might be the holdup in negotiations. The 37-year-old quarterback insisted that without question, he can keep playing at a high level into his 40s. I don't see any reason why I can't play at the highest level for the next 5 years minimum. Quote, listen, I'm not naive, and I'm not looking 5 years from now. I'm really looking at each and every year and understanding I got to prove it. But I feel like with my training regimen and with the people I have around me and the things that we're doing to put myself in the best position to succeed, I don't see any reason why I can't do this beyond 5 years from now. Oh, Max. What do you think of Drew Brees' comments?
Well, I see a reason why you can't do it 5 years from now. But before I address that, I want to talk about what we talked about yesterday, because a similar topic came up with Tom Brady. And I prefaced, now I'm going to preface it with this. I love when Patriots fans suffer. I love it. I'm a Giants fan. The 2 greatest moments of my life, other than the birth of my children, Or Eli doing it to them once and then doing it to them again the exact same way. Oh, I feel like Cartman from South Park. I'd like to lick the tears off their faces like Scott Tenorman. Oh, I hate you Patriots fans. However, I prefaced what I was going to say yesterday by saying that Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. Again, Patriots fans, listen to me carefully. Greatest quarterback of all time. Not one of them. I take him number one. But then I went on to say that he's about to fall off a cliff.
Yeah, I
given his
remember
age.
this.
He's 39 years old. It's going to be Roadrunner, meet me, off the cliff. And then I used the phrase bum, which I meant to be, I was being glib because I was juxtaposing the idea to the fact that I consider him the greatest of all time. So I'm watching the convention, and people blowing me up on Twitter.
They didn't like the word bum.
They didn't like it. I don't blame them. I'm watching the convention last night, and there are these ads talking about, our children are watching, because there's someone who's doing a lot of name-calling. And then on Twitter, some of the people are just cursing me out, but others said, hey, why are you resorting to name-calling? You're trolling. Yeah. That's not my conscious intention. Maybe on some level I was trolling. But that's not what I want to do because it obscures the point I'm making. And the point I'm making is that no quarterback who ever lived has played well past 41 years old. Age 40 is their last effectively elite season of anyone. Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, anyone you want to talk about, they don't have a age 41 season that you would call elite anymore. And most of them really aren't effective NFL play. Almost none of them are ever effective NFL quarterbacks anymore on a starting level. Almost none, ever, never. Now, how does this apply to Drew Brees? What is Drew Brees really doing here, Stephen A? He wants to get paid. And the way you get paid in the NFL is the guaranteed money. And the way they give you the guaranteed money is they prorate it over years to avoid huge cap hits. So for him to get paid, he has to say, I can play till I'm 45. Now, maybe he really believes that, but the truth is the odds are zero that Drew Brees will be a good quarterback when he's 45 years old. The odds are zero he'll be in the NFL. It's never happened before at the quarterback position in the modern era. It's not going to start with Drew Brees. I love Drew Brees like everyone else. He's among my favorite players ever, but it's simply never going to happen. Now, let's say for some reason Tom Brady or Drew Brees become the first player ever where it happens for them. It's like LeBron when he was down 3-1, Stephen A. He gets enormous credit now because he did the impossible, because no one ever did what he did. Muhammad Ali against George Foreman, the Rumble in the Jungle, winning the title back, 5-1 underdog. Well, I always knew Ali was going to do it. Well, if you knew he was going to do it, then maybe he didn't just pull off the miracle, right? The fact is he did the impossible. That's why we love him and remember him now. If Tom Brady or Drew Brees play for another, till they're 41, 42, still as elite quarterbacks, they will have done something that's never been done before, and the amazing nature of the accomplishment is directly proportional to the impossibility of the odds of it happening. There is no way Drew Brees can play till his mid-40s. It's never going to happen. Me.
Max Kellerman, first things first. You're a highly intelligent individual. So much so that I barely understood what the hell you were saying half the time right there. So let me be very, very clear, because you were talking way over my head in certain respects, and that is very, very difficult to do. Having said all of that, let me say this. Drew Brees has passed for over 4,600 yards in the last 6 years straight. 2 of those times he's passed for over 5,000 yards. Drew Brees is the best offensive player on the New Orleans Saints. He is a future Hall of Famer. He is one of the great, great quarterbacks of all time. And if he isn't able to go another 5 years, I think what Drew Brees is saying is it ain't because of him. You might not get an offensive line that protects him. You might not get receivers that can catch the ball. He might have to sit up there and dance in the pocket too much where he's getting hit. Drew Brees has never had the strongest arm, but he's had a good enough arm. Most of his damage is made prior to the snap because of his ability to read defenses, read coverages, make the necessary adjustments, audibles, etc. This is what he does. He's a brainiac. He's incredibly cerebral at his job. When you consider what he is able to do, what he has been able to do in the past, and then you think about what they have right now, the kind of weapons that he has available to him now, and Cooks and Fleener's now there, and what have you. and you take into account the fact that the Saints defense is probably going to stink again. We hope that they're not going to be dead last or down in near the bottom like they were last season. But the only pass rusher they have is Cameron Jordan. There's nobody else worth noting. So taking all of those things into consideration, I think you look at Drew Brees, and it's not that you're wrong in terms of what's conventional. Of course, most guys can't do it up to age 40, let alone past 40. I'm saying to you, most guys ain't Drew Brees. Just like I told you yesterday, most guys ain't Tom Brady.
But Stephen A., I'm not saying most guys. I'm saying no one in the history of football has ever.
Okay.
If Tom Brady does it, he'll be the first. And then Drew Brees is going to be the second.
And I'm saying that.
Look, the 4-minute mile, no one did, and then they did, and they broke it again. That's what's going to have to happen.
But I'm not saying to you that they're normal. I'm saying they're the exception. And I'm saying that I think both of them will do it. I concern myself more with Drew Brees than Tom Brady because the Saints stink. And I think they need to get better. And I think they need to do an exceptional job of protecting him so he can inflict his damage. But with Tom Brady, I have no doubt. I have no doubt that Tom Brady is going to produce into his 40s because he is protected by Bill Belichick and the system that is the New England Patriots. I don't think Drew Brees can say the same. I think Drew Brees essentially is carrying the Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints. I think Tom Brady, even though he's great, is an extreme benefactor of the Bill Belichick and New England Patriots system.
Tom Brady's father said before the start of the 15 season, it's going to end badly for Tom.
Tom Brady's father?
Tom Brady's father.
So?
Because he says Tom's going to want to go out there till he's 70. They're going to have to rip the uniform off him. So there's going to come a time where he's not good anymore. So what we all know that. If you keep playing, eventually you're going to be a bad player. And that's for everyone who ever lived. So the question, the only real dispute we're having is when. Now, Tom Brady has a better shot than Drew Brees simply because he's closer to that point. He's 39. Drew Brees, it's harder to forecast over more seasons. He's only 37. He could have a lot of wear and tear in the next 3 NFL seasons, let alone 7 NFL seasons.
This is why I said I'm more confident about Tom Brady. But I also think it's important that you recognize, first of all, let me say something to you about Tom Brady and other great ones. And you know this. You should almost be ashamed for trying to make this argument. When you are great, yeah, you might have a moment where you stink up the joint. But usually you sit up there and say, I just can't do this anymore. Like, for example, Tim Duncan really, really struggled last year. But in that Game 6 closeout game where they lost to Oklahoma City, who was on the floor for San Antonio? It wasn't LaMarcus Aldridge. It was Tim Duncan. And who was balling? It was Tim Duncan. Okay, Kobe, like you said, because of injuries and beyond, he stunk up the joint. Last game, dropped 60 on Utah. All I'm saying to you is this. Tom Brady may end up being exposed as not being what he once was at some point, and it'll be time to let it go. And I know you didn't want to use the word that you used. Fair enough. Even though if it were me, and that's what I said, damn it, that's what I said. But we're two different guys.
The children are watching.
I feel you.
Children are watching, Stephen A.
Damn it, it's sport. Look.
I get it. You want to be above name calling.
I feel you on that. I prefer to be factual. Yep. When I sit there and say something similar about Jay Cutler, I mean it. It's the truth. Period. Now back to the point. My point to you is this. When I look at what Tom Brady is, he is the kind of guy, to me, that will sit up there and say, hey, it's over. I can't do this anymore. He
not according to his father. According to his now, the only argument we're really having is when. Yeah. Everyone knows if you keep playing, you're eventually going to be bad. So the question is when. And this is the argument I heard for Jeter, Kobe, Peyton, and now Tom Brady. No. I know the history of humanity says one thing, but this guy's special. As though no one who is special has ever existed before. Now, for Patriots fans who are like, oh, I thought you said he's the greatest ever. Maybe he'll be the one to do it. Yeah, that's a good argument. He keeps himself in shape. We know more about nutrition. He's on a great team. He has 2 tight ends now. He doesn't have to throw it all the way down the field forever, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's a good argument. If someone can do it, maybe it will be Brady. But the odds are long. Yeah. And if you don't think the odds are long, then you won't give him exceptional credit when he does it. Because he's probably not going to.
The conversation isn't about whether the odds are long or not. The conversation is about whether or not you think he can do it.
No.
I accept it. I respect the fact that that it's long, but I believe he can do it.
And the reason I say fall off a cliff is because that imagery to me is what happens. The great ones, like Brady, like Peyton, like Kobe, like Jeter, like Willie Mays, they seem to be sailing along at such a high level. Hank Aaron even hit very close to the end of his career, had a 40 home run season, one of his best hitting seasons. They see, and they make contemporaries feel like, oh my God, they're as good as they've ever been. They can keep doing this and then comes the cliff. Shh. That's what I'm saying about Brady. That's my whole point is watching him play, you think he can keep going forever, and I'm here to tell you, not only is that not going to happen, but the end is almost here.
I appreciate your veracity. I appreciate your honesty and the whole bit. You have no factual evidence to back that up.
The whole history of humanity.
History, but if anybody can defy the odds, it's Tom Brady. The way this man takes care of
But what are they doing? They'd be defying the odds, right? But they'd be defying the odds.
Yes.
Okay.
But if it could,
who said that?
But if it could ever happen, it would be somebody like this guy.
On this week's SportsCenter podcast with me, Linda Cohn, Damian Woody and Adam Kaplan say Le'Veon Bell has to change his path before the consequences become much more severe to him and the Steelers. Go to the Listen tab on the ESPN app.
So who is the most hated NFL player of all time, you ask? Now pay very close attention to the criteria for this list. Sporting News came out with a list of the 40 most hated players of all time. However, one major caveat, Aaron Hernandez, Ray Caruth, O.J. Simpson, and Ray Rice were left off for obvious reasons. Instead, the focus was narrowed to players who were hated while they were on the field. Michael Vick takes the top spot, followed by Terrell Owens. You can marinate on that list there for a second. So with that being said, what's the biggest issue for you guys on this list? Stephen A., do you want to start?
Let
Max go? Okay.
Well, first of all, you understand, given the criteria, why Vic is one. Otherwise, you'd be like, wait, where's Aaron Hernandez, right? But
yeah, of course.
So you see Vic is one. T.O. is two. What is the issue that people have with T.O.? One of the greatest receivers of all time. And then the question was, okay, but how does he handle the big moment? And this was a time, don't forget, where Brett Favre was throwing interceptions in the playoffs, and he was loved. The media was waxing poetic about how selfless he was, even as he was tanking his team's chances at that point in his career. But look, he suits up he takes every snap, and he's on the field, and look at him, no matter what injuries.
No. Don't stop. Don't do that. Don't forget this about Brett Favre. Oh, look at how he jumps into the arms of his offensive lineman. Oh, look at how he hugs his back. I mean, it's just so wonderful. I mean, he looks like a little kid out there.
He's throwing up plays in the dirt, you know.
Yeah, okay, remember when Cam did that last year? Yeah, a little different.
Well, I'm going to get to Cam in a second. T.O. has a bad leg. He's bad wheel. Playing on one leg. Says, I'm going to play in the Super Bowl. And some of the media focus was that he was being selfish for risking his team's chances while playing hurt just because he wanted to be on the field. What are people? And then in the Super Bowl, he is the best player on the field on either team. Yeah, I can understand why you hate that guy more than anyone who ever played other than Michael Vick. And then Cam Newton. He's a little lower down on the list, but Cam Newton appears on the list. I get it. He's famous. Part of this is just hating on famous and good players who don't play for your own team.
And hating on his dabbing. No question.
Let me just get this straight.
I don't like it. I love it, what I'm saying. I don't understand why people hate it, my point.
Let me just get this straight. All Cam Newton does is win football games and hand the ball to little kids in the stands.
Yep.
And then celebrates when he does something good. Yeah, I could really understand why you don't like Cam Newton.
Here's your problem. I have to stop you from talking right there because you literally dropped your mic.
Yeah.
I literally dropped the mic.
So, literally dropped your mic. Let me get to my list and then we'll come back to you.
That's the TV and sports god sending us a message.
No,
there we go.
that's just being a true pro.
No, that's all right. We're helping you out here. Here's the deal.
Drop the mic.
Are y'all ready for this?
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Sit down for this one, right?
All right.
There's 40 people on this list. You know what my biggest problem with this list is? Tim Tebow. At 21. Are you ready for this? I believe he should be higher. Now, by hate, I don't mean the person. Tim Tebow is a wonderful dude. Tim Tebow is a good guy. Tim Tebow is the guy, like they say, you know, you'd want him dating your daughter or whatever. All this other stuff that they said about him. I'm strictly talking football. If there were a person that should be despised, it's Tim Tebow, because as a football player, if you are an NFL guy, the fact that this guy got the shine that he got for the years that he received it is as nauseating as it gets. Think about what people have to go through to get to the NFL. Think about the sacrifices that they have to make, the trials and tribulations that they have to go through, the commitment to excellence. that they have to put forth. And they get to the NFL level, and everybody knows they got stud potential. But this dude, who never could throw, and I mean never could throw. And I want to hear about the touchdown pass of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You understand what I'm saying? That my man Skip used to throw at me. I want to make me want to throw something at him. Because let me tell you something right now. A dead clock is right twice a day. Anybody can get something done right once or twice.
But in
the end, Tim Tebow is the guy. To me, I think the number 21 is low. I think that when you think about a football player that you may not like, and when you think about the shine that he received, how unworthy he was of it.
Don't do this to me.
That's why.
Don't do this to me.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to walk into it. I got no. You're giving me no option. Kyle Orton was a low-average quarterback at the time. They couldn't buy a win. Tim Tebow starts, and they win 7 games, make the playoffs. 7-3 lifetime? 7-4?
7-4. 7-4, and won a playoff game.
And won a playoff game,
right.
And never got another opportunity in the league. I'm sorry. Whatever you think of Kyle Orton now in retrospect, at the time at least, the perception was he's not an average quarterback, but he's like low average. He's not terrible. And they couldn't buy a win. Now, look, Tebow's mechanics and all those things, mechanics are a means to an end. It's significant if you can't get the job done. But if you can get in the huddle, and whether by inspiration or perspiration or your arm or your legs or luck, if you can help your team or lead your team to victory when they weren't winning right up until the point you came into you took control, and then they won almost twice as much as they lost and won a playoff game, right. And you never get another opportunity. I understand why some people think he got media attention out of proportion to his accomplishments or his abilities. But actually just doing that is what I just mentioned, what he accomplished, is much more than most ever do. How could you have him the most hated?
He had a cup of coffee in the NFL, is all we talked about.
That was a good cup of coffee, though. Got the milk and sugar just right.
Let me explain. You took me here. It's your fault.
No, you
did. It's your fault.
No,
it's your fault. It's your fault. Stop it. Let me tell you something, Molly and Max.
What he did.
Okay? Do you realize that Tim Tebow won a football game completing 2 passes? Do you realize that? 2 passes.
He won a football game?
Yeah, he won a football game.
Won. What's the operative word there?
Time out. I recall there being special teams on a football team. I recall there being a defense. I recall for a minimum of 3 quarters, this dude was god-awful. I recall him over the course of a season completing 46.5% of his passes. If people complete 60% of their passes, we consider it subpar. He's at 46%. He could run the football. With him, the Denver Broncos had the #1 rushing attack, okay, with the read option and all of this other stuff. But the bottom line is this. He couldn't throw. So from a talent perspective, let me talk to you. You ever heard the name Denard Robinson out of Michigan?
Yes, of course.
He had some skills. Did he ever get given the chance that Tim Tebow was given?
He was given one chance. In fact, he wasn't given enough. He's given one chance.
What I'm saying to you is this. Tebow got sabotaged in New York. The whole Rex, I'm not blaming him for the Rex Ryan situation at all. And obviously he had to leave Denver because they got Peyton Manning.
We have to talk about this topic on this show.
No, I don't like it either. But here's the point. When you talk about being on the hated list, the reason why I say his name should be elevated is because he debunked the theory and the notion and the fact that you had to bust your tail and be a actual talent in order to be on the NFL level. Nothing can take away from what he could achieve in college. But as a pro, if I'm a dude out there busting my tail to get to the NFL level and I got these skills and I'm seeing this dude get all of this shine, I'm going to resent that.
Look, Stephen A., if we took a little puppy and put him on the desk right now, doesn't do anything, doesn't know anything about sports. We took a parrot or a monkey, whatever it is, and put it on the desk, and the ratings went up. Would we ask whether the mascot deserved
Hell
shine?
Yes.
No.
Hell
if the
yes.
ratings went up, we put him on.
No.
It's results-based.
No.
If you start a guy, and look, you said, well, there were special teams on the field. There was defense on the field.
Yeah, but ratings didn't help a football team win.
The point, no. The point is, he got They were on the field with Kyle Orton, too. But they couldn't win until they were inspired, or Tebow's legs, or maybe he even got a little lucky or otherwise.
I'm almost allergic.
When Mark Bulger took over for Kurt Warner, that was due to injury, don't forget.
Right.
Was Mark Bulger as good as Kurt Warner? No. But they went 8-0 to start that season, and Kurt Warner never started for the Rams again.
But Mark Bulger actually played quarterback, and he actually could throw the football. He wasn't a running back playing the quarterback position.
Stephen A.,
Number one,
I'm not claiming he can throw the football.
That's right.
I'm saying he won with them, and he never got another shot.
I'm saying to you, we're talking about why I believe he should have been elevated on the hate list, because it's a level of resentment that you have for somebody that can't play a position but is receiving all the shine for it. And last point is this. Speak for yourself. You can speak for her. You can speak for yourself. I don't give a damn what the ratings are. Ain't no monkey or parrot or anybody else going to be on this show, and I'm going to sit here every day. I'll be damned. Yes. So that would be my position. I would not accept that.
Let's talk to the producers. I just want to get a little puppy. Put it right here.
And watch what I do.
And see what happens. If the ratings go up, you show up the next day.
I might take it home. I might take it home with me, but ain't going to sit up here with me for the show. Promise you that.
Even if it's
correlation, that's all I'm trying to say.
I know correlation does not equal causality. I get that. And essentially the argument about Tim Tebow is, now there was a correlation with him winning, going 7-4, making the playoffs for a team that couldn't win without him, and winning a playoff game. But it's not causal, and all the talent evaluators in the NFL saw the same thing, and he never got another shot. My point is, if anything, he was denied opportunity in the sense that, show me another player who takes over for a losing team, goes 7-4, wins a playoff game, who never gets another shot.
Tim Tebow is you know what, he personifies what a lot of people believe is a problem with America. That guy being celebrated for his marginal talent having self.
See, I wanted to sit here,
reality.
I wanted to sit here and talk about how Cam is getting hated on.
I know, we didn't get to the rest of the list.
But you turned it. Oh, I think you missed talking about Tim Tebow. I think that's what it must be. I think this is a deep psychological issue.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah.
You turned this into a Tim Tebow discussion.
He was on the list. He was on the list at number 21. I think he should have been high. There's no excuse to hate Cam.
Listen,
there's no excuse.
Well, yeah, you got one excuse. Jump on the ball, Cam. Otherwise, like, loose ball, jump on the ball. Don't jump away from it. Otherwise, he's, other than LeBron, the greatest athlete on earth, maybe the best football player in the world, gives the ball to kids in the stands. I don't know why there's hate for Cam.
I agree with that. There's no argument there.
At 47 years young, Roy Jones Jr. is getting back in the ring to fight journeyman Rockin' Rodney Moore. The bout is August 13th. It's in Pensacola, Florida. Now, this fight will headline the Island Fights 38 card. This is an ongoing series that combines boxing matches and MMA bouts on the same show. Jones is 63-9 with 46 KOs. Stephen A., 47. Should Roy fight?
No, he should not. Max covers the sport of boxing. He works with Roy Jones. I've known Roy Jones for years because obviously he was pretty close with Allen Iverson. And, you know, Roy and I have gotten to know each other. And, you know, I consider him a friend. I think he's a beautiful person. I got a lot of love for him. And I say everything that I'm about to say. It's nothing new. Mm-hmm. It's something I've told Roy Jones to his face. It's something I said to him on the phone. It's something I said to friends and confidants of his. I've wanted Roy Jones to retire since he got knocked out by Lebedev back in 2011, if I remember correctly. I think it was May 21st, 2011. He got knocked out in Russia. Went to Russia again and got knocked out last year, December 12th. And I was screaming again, they don't need to allow him to fight anymore. I do believe that some of the shots that he's taken, he's never, even though the Tarver stoppage, that can happen to anybody, Max. You know this better than me. The knockout to Glenn Johnson was when he fell and he hit the back of his head and he was shaking on the canvas. I mean, that was some scary stuff that I saw happen to him. I think that was in Memphis years ago. He continues to fight. He's fighting no-names. He's fighting, you know, cruiserweights and guys like that. And even though he's won some of them against these no-names, when he's been knocked out viciously. Macaronelli, I believe. I mean, he fell face first. You know, I'm looking at this stuff, and I just don't want to see this. You know, Roy Jones was spectacular. Roy Jones was great, and Max will elaborate more extensively on it than I ever could when he highlights, the greatness of Roy Jones, how he was #1 in the world pound for pound, what he meant to the sport of boxing over a 9-year period. He was absolutely spectacular. But I think you'll agree with me, Max, when I say this. His fundamentals were never great. His star status, who he was. And if I'm not going to front here, because as much as I know my boxing, watching you and watching who I consider to be the greatest voice in the history of boxing outside of Howard Cosell, which is Jim Lampley. I mean, I listen to you guys. It's not just what I see. It's not just what I know. It's not just what I watch. Okay. It's also listening to you call these fights. I am telling you, I am scared for Roy Jones Jr. I'm not playing. I think Roy Jones is a good man. And remember when his friend McClellan with Nigel Benn and got, he obviously was up there, Gerald McClellan. When he got hurt, Roy was up on Capitol Hill, testifying before Congress, like, look, we need to do something for the sport of boxing. We need to do something for these fighters. I'm getting scared that one of these days, something akin to this is going to happen to Roy, and I desperately don't want it. And Max, I'm on the record. I have begged publicly and I have begged privately for him to retire, not to fight anymore, and I've even called for them not to allow him to fight anymore. But Roy's hard-headed, man, which you know.
Two things. One, as a friend of his, I don't want to see him get hurt. I don't want to see him lose and take these shots. But let me tell, and we are colleagues and everything. Yeah. And actually, the first fight I ever worked with him, he was ringside, and I was at the host position. I was the analyst, and Bob Costas was the host. And Bob asked me about Roy, who had just, if memory serves, lost to Antonio Tarver. This is a guy who never lost a round to anyone. All of a sudden, he was knocked out. And then also, you're right, Glenn Johnson, going back about 10 years. Understand, Roy was a guy who never lost a moment of a fight, and all of a sudden he's being dominated and stopped by a guy who these guys couldn't touch him in his prime. Right. So I used some phrasing, the way I said Tom Brady fall off a cliff, and I used another word that made everyone mad. I was also a little careless with what I said, and said that he was damaged goods at the time, and Roy was hot, boy. Roy saw me, and I was like, what's up? He's always been very good to me in the press and everything, giving me interviews and stuff, and he wanted to, hit me. I was like, what's up? He's like, he was just hot, right? What I explained to him subsequently, I apologize for the way it came out, but I don't like what's happening to his legacy. Let's table the man and the dangers of boxing for a second. Mm-hmm. I want people to understand this. Kids, Floyd Mayweather. He's been the best pound for pound for a long, unbroken time, right? Mm-hmm. In boxing. And then he put distance between himself and everyone else. He's like this and everyone else is below him. Floyd was in his prime when Roy was in Roy's prime for years and years and years. Not a single person on earth ever even wondered, is Floyd as good as Roy? You understand how good Roy Jones was? It's like when Jordan was in his prime and Shaq was coming up and no one ever asked, is Shaq as good as Jordan? Then the day Jordan retires, Shaq puts that same distance between him and everyone else. That's who Jordan was. That's who Roy was. He put distance between him and Floyd, like Floyd puts more distance even than Floyd puts between him and everyone else. Roy was the best I'd ever seen in person with my own eyes. They couldn't touch him.
With knockout power.
Just go look at old clips of Roy. I'm not talking about from 10 years ago. I'm talking about from 15 years ago. This is how good Roy was. Remember when Mike Tyson knocked out Michael Spinks? Yeah. Kids, this is the distant past. Everyone thought Mike Tyson, they wouldn't say it out loud, but he's going to be the greatest fighter ever. Mm-hmm. He's going to be better than Ali. He's going to be better than Sugar Ray Robinson. He's going to be the greatest ever. That's what people were thinking, and the old-timers wouldn't say it, but everyone was thinking it. If I told you on that night that there is an amateur junior middleweight who is never going to come close to really losing a fight, should won a gold medal, got ripped off, win titles at middleweight, super middleweight, jump up to light heavyweight, jump up to heavyweight,
against John Ruiz,
beat a top 5 heavyweight, and one day open 2-1 to beat Mike Tyson, you would say that's not possible. You're describing the best fighter ever. That's how we perceived Roy Jones the night he beat John Ruiz. This guy may challenge Sugar Ray Robinson for the #1 pound-for-pound spot of all time. The fact that kids nowadays see Roy Jones even competing, let alone losing, to these fighters, I hope people understand, none of these guys could last a round or two with Roy in his prime. So there's the man that I'm worried for, my friend. Mm-hmm. who I understand, I respect him. By the way, if you have Roy Jones as a friend, you have a friend. He is loyal. Roy would give you the shirt off.
Absolutely.
He never looks for publicity for it. I've had people come up to me and say things like he paid for their kids' school and stuff.
Look.
You know, like he's an amazing guy.
I forgot the guy's name, but you'll remember this. Some guy, this is not an exaggeration, Molly. Some guy fought him. And you know how they say, Roy Jones, from Pensacola, Florida. This guy was from Rahway State Prison. That's what they announced him as, okay? He comes out, muscles everywhere. He races across the ring to swing on Roy. And by the end of the first round, he had got dropped at least once, I think twice. You understand? And Roy could have hurt him more, but Roy was like trying to be nice to him. And then in the second round, after dropping him again, then he has the guy hurt, and Roy steps away and looks at the ref. Come on, man. Stop this. And the ref like, keep going. Roy like, whop. This is what...
He's
special.
So there's the
and
man,
nice.
There's the man and my friend who I'm concerned for. Roy, we love you. I love you, brother. You know that. But then there's also the boxing fan in me who wants people to understand what this man was at his best. I do not want people thinking about this fighter. I want people remembering the guy he was in his prime, because you will never see something like that again.
We got to go.
Yep.
Roy Jones Jr. was every bit as marvelous as Max just described. People barely remember that now. We don't even see his fights. Even when he got knocked out, I saw it on YouTube. I didn't even know he had a fight. That's how much he's fallen, and I'm just so scared for him, Molly, because like Max said, you can't find a nicer guy.
Yep.
You can't find a nice guy.
It's not just nice, it goes deep.
He's a good man.
Loyal to his friends.
He's a good man.
Cares about people.
He's a good man.
And by the way, a brilliant commentator. Like, I can't tell you how much I've learned about boxing sitting next to Roy Jones on the undercard to fight, calling fights.
So really the combination of legacy and safety, of course, is why you guys don't want to see him back in the ring. Several Eagles players have spoken out about Chip Kelly during his 3 years in Philadelphia. Well, now you can add veteran Jason Peters to the list of critics. Take a listen.
I just think it was more scheme. Man, it's the National Football League, and if the running back is to the left and you running the zone read, I mean, where do you think the ball going? To the right. So it just, they caught up to us. We just needed to change a little bit up, especially with Sam back there. They know he's not going to run it, so they kind of, put our hands behind our back. When the guys know, and they professionals too, and they know what the play is, it's tough. The last couple of years, it wasn't a lot of vets. And any vet that stood up and had something to say, we got rid of him. But Doug was a player here, and he understands, veteran players, and he understands the game. So I think it's better.
Stephen A., break this down for me. You know Philly very well. Chip's gone. Do they need to stop talking about him?
They do need to stop talking about him. Jason Peters is not wrong with anything that he said. He's completely accurate. Obviously, I took a lot of heat because of the reports that I was going, that I reported on the story. Just to refresh your memory, Max, in case you didn't hear, because you weren't here at the time, obviously. It all started because I was in Philadelphia, writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer for 17 years, and I still have a home down near that area. And I was at my barbershop on Spring Garden at 15th Street. And while I was going to my car after getting a haircut, three members of the team pulled me over and stopped me. Gave me all the details about Chip Kelly, what was going on, the extent to which he would go through to do some of the things that he did that they felt very invasive, unconventional, and a bit excessive. And it went from there. And they basically said, he's got some issues. He's got some issues with us, etc. And everything took off from there. I say all of that to give you the background to say that I'm qualified to say what I'm about to say. I am not in any way challenging what Jason Peters said or what anybody has to say about Chip Kelly. Their criticism of him is accurate. He was arrogant. He was excessive. He thought he knew it all. He didn't want to listen to anybody. He adopted a bunker mentality to the point where he even alienated himself from half the staff. There were a couple of individuals that were on Chip Kelly's staff and would go and talk, they would go around to other officials, former or present officials in the league, where you were seeking counsel, Max, and advice about what to do. And they would say, they literally would ask these people that work for Chip Kelly, what do you do? We work for Chip Kelly. They didn't even have a title. They would just say, we work for Chip Kelly. So they were guys that, you had people getting paid. You didn't know their job description. You didn't know what they did for a living.
Yes.
All types of stuff. Guys coming home and Chip Kelly and them asking them, what did you do the night before? Like, I went home. I went to bed. Really? Because this person just came to your house at 11 o'clock. So you sure you went to bed? I'm just telling you what they told me. Look, I'm just telling you what they told me. I wasn't there. I don't know. I wasn't a fly on the wall. I'm telling you what they told me. So with all of that being said, whatever they say about Chip Kelly, I'm going to believe it because I've seen enough from Chip Kelly to believe it. The flip side is this. There comes a point in time. It's time to shut the hell up. And I'm not saying that directed at Jason Peters, who I respect. I'm not talking about, I don't even know him, but I just respect him, his game, and a lot of those guys in that locker room. All I mean by saying it that way is to say this. You have a season coming up. Chip Kelly is no longer your coach. Doug Peterson's your coach now. You got to take into consideration the fact that the Giants have gotten better. The Redskins have gotten better, at least in a lot of people's eyes. And obviously the Dallas Cowboys are going to have Romo and Des Bryant back. In all probability, they're going to be better. So when you take that into consideration, you're not going to have the excuse of Chip Kelly to lean on to justify your dereliction of duty, your ineptitude, your lack of production. You're not pulling that off. You have to adopt the mentality. Chip Kelly is the past. This is the present. We're moving forward. And that is that. Because the more you talk, and I understand that reporters are probably going in their face and inundating them with questions. You got to be like, yo, I ain't here to talk about Chip Kelly no more. Because if we lose, I can't blame him now because he ain't here. Because you're elevating the level of expectations. I feel like the players are starting to come across when I hear comments like that emanating from their locker room, it gives the impression we lost last year because of Chip Kelly. Not us. We didn't have anything to do with it. And I'm saying, are you sure about that? Because I know that Chip Kelly could have done a better job. Your defense was ranked 30th. You had no conventional offense whatsoever. High speed didn't give any consideration to your defense. But still in all, you were on the field. Are you sure you had nothing to do with it? I'm not. Let's see. That's all I'm saying.
Well, first of all, I agree with that point. Because what you find in life as you mature is that you're responsible for everything that happens to you. And to young people, that sounds weird. You're like, well, sometimes you have bad luck. How are you responsible for it? Responsible doesn't mean you caused it. It means, I said everything that happens to you, it's happening to you. If you don't take responsibility for it, who will? So if that's happening to them, as soon as you start to hear players pointing the finger, and that's why particularly in a military game like football, which is a militaristic sport, people get very suspicious when they start seeing finger pointing. It's not, if you have a bunch of people who don't want to take personal responsibility, that's going to be an issue. Chip Kelly's problem was this, and this is like, it's cliche, the college coach, maybe innovative in college and everything, is dealing with, you can call them young men, because they're not quite adults yet in college, right? Now, you can be authoritarian with those guys. You can tell them what to do, what time to go to sleep. You have really much more control over those kids than you do over professionals and adults. The question, of course, was, will he maintain that attitude in the pros?
Yeah.
And the answer was yes, he did. It was the classic case, it seems, of a guy who would not change his ways and treated professional adults as though they were kids in college. And it fostered resentment. And when I know it the most, like, even the Bradford thing, you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Read options, like, I don't get, with Sam Bradford, how's that going to work? He can't move. Okay, you know what? If you really look at Chip Kelly's offense, a lot of short passes he uses instead of the running game, right? And then you take, or rather, running instead of the short passing game. So you don't take the same kind of risks through the air and you pick up kind of similar yards. And then when he does throw the ball, it's down the field, which Sam Bradford is good at. You want to give him the benefit of that doubt. And you're still like, but Sam Bradford doesn't seem like the right quarterback. The tip to me was when they let go of 2 veteran offensive linemen right before the season. Because if anything, especially given his ideas, you would think you need continuity on the offensive line. And they let it go. And at that point you say, how much of this is ego, as though, as long as I have a system, the pieces don't even matter. And that further marginalizes the players in terms of the way they feel a part of the team. Not only does this guy want to control everything, but he thinks that we're just purely chess pieces and we don't have like varying degrees of ability. So there's a lot of resentment there. I don't think that means Chip Kelly can never be a good coach. This is his first stop. Bill Belichick wasn't very good at his first stop as a head coach either. I think if he is humbled by it to a degree and learns from it, he can still be a good coach. But that wasn't the case.
Well, let's say this, first of all. Can Chip Kelly be a good coach? Sure. I got a problem. While I'm on the record saying that the Eagles just need to move forward, affectionately embrace the concept of shutting the hell up, understanding that indeed, if you talk, you elevate the level of expectations aimed in your direction because you're giving the impression that last year's 7-9 season was on Chip Kelly and not on you, and they shouldn't do that. Let's not completely gloss over who Chip Kelly is. He was at Oregon. He came to the NFL and tried to make them the Philadelphia Ducks or the Oregon Eagles, whichever way you want to call it, with the whole Oregon crew that he brought on the team. Okay? He had no concept whatsoever about defense, time of possession. The gap between that and the offense in terms of time of possession was as wide as the Pacific Ocean. He sat up there and sacrificed defense, sacrificed bodies, sacrificed coaches, didn't give a damn about the city he represented. All of these things are true. And then found himself going to San Francisco, where you got a dude by the name of Trent Baalke, okay, who ran the only dude that kept them relevant in the last decade and a half. Jim Harbaugh out of town because of ego, but they're together now, and I wish them nothing but the best, by the way. So you got all of that going on. Let's be clear. No one ever questioned Chip Kelly's football knowledge. What we've questioned about Chip Kelly is where your mind is, what do you really, really care about, and how do you go about the business of ingratiating yourself with people that ultimately you will need to produce for you. The man stunk at his job, got fired, and then somehow, some way, inside of 3 weeks, this man had a new contract paying him $6 million per. Only in America, damn it. Let me steal a line from Don King. Only in America can this happen.
Boy,
how the hell does he end up with an NFL? I'm not talking about a job because I know he could go back to college. But an NFL job less than a month after you got fired, after the job you did in Philadelphia?
Why do you think he got the job?
Why do I think he got the job? Well, let's just say that some folks have a beautiful, beautiful way of making the kind of connections, dare I say, most of us don't have the luxury of making.
You're saying he got the connections and the complexion?
Yeah.
By the way, kids, you think he had a pretty good column to read in Philadelphia?
I'm certainly not saying that that's the case with everyone, but it's certainly the case with Chip Kelly.
By the way, real quick, I agree that you can't just ask players to know this for themselves. You have to have a moratorium. You have to instruct your players, stop answering questions about Chip Kelly. That's the only way to get that done.
And that's the bottom line. Even if the criticism is valid, let's move on now because it's just going to start to make them look weak with you guys on that.
Column out of Philly.
Yeah, he brought it.
You're lucky I wasn't there writing a column at that time last year.
How are analytics helping Team Sky win the Tour de France? Find out this week on Hot Takedown, 538 Sports Podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or on the Listen tab of your ESPN app.
Okay, all right, that's it. You done.
I didn't know flogging was a training method. Built like a brick house. There's no way that hurts you.
Ass pack, yeah. It works. Preps you for the pain.
You should look into taking up paddleboarding or something.
What's Stephen say?
Well, he claims his hands are tied. Things seem really up over there.
Tell me about it. I can't even get a call about OTAs. My deal's already set.
Lack of gratitude speaks volumes about a man.
Yeah. So listen to this story. Our next guest was named after John David Crow, the great St. Louis running back. His father, I did my homework, Denzel Washington, had a premonition because his son went on to become Morehouse College's all-time leading rusher in 2006. He was signed to the St. Louis Rams as a free agent. And now, such a cool story, he plays a football player on the hit show HBO Ballers, John David Washington in the house. Thank you so much.
See you, man.
Thank you for being here. You do a fantastic job on that show in that role. It seems like we just saw a clip, obviously. Great cast. You guys have a lot of fun. What is the best part of being on Ballers?
Besides the camaraderie of the cast and crew and the city, you know, they've ingratiated us in this in filming, you know, and it's really one of the main characters, I believe, the city of Miami itself, and they're very supportive, and it's been a lot of fun filming all over the place in Miami.
Good city.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like a lot of fun.
It's good time.
Looks like a lot of fun.
Good time. Yeah. Good, clean family fun.
Yeah.
You know? Restaurants, museums.
It comes across on the screen. Like, you're right. It's a character. You want to be watching the show, even if it's just for weather porn. You know, like whatever it is. You want to be watching the show. So you're working out with the ride. You know, you're in his kind of area, in his vicinity, and this dude is jacked up and in shape, and you're going to be doing stuff, you know, from time to time that shows off your physique. Does that put extra pressure on you to make sure that you know, are jacked up like The Rock?
Nah, not at all. Actually, it's way more fun training to look like I can play ball instead of when I was actually playing ball, being a trainer for television. So, no, it's no extra pressure. I don't have to lift as heavy. I can do higher reps, you know, lower weight, and it's a lot of fun getting ready physically for this character.
Talk to me about the show itself. I mean, you know, I've watched it. Obviously, you're doing a fantastic job. I'm a fan of Dwayne Johnson because I was a wrestler fan. I used to watch him as The Rock a lot and all of that stuff.
No,
and
he's
I love
Brick
him.
on General Hospital.
That's right. So he's got some acting skills. He can relate.
Oh, look at you. You got your SAG card?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Yes, I do, actually. Us actors got to stick together. But check it out. Looking at Ballers, I want you to talk to me about the show itself and because I think every show, particularly a show like that in this day and age, is trying to send a message through the various stories that it tells. Ultimately, what is the theme of this show, and what do you think makes the show so successful thus far?
I think, especially my approach to this Ricky character, is a chance to show human beings, you know, go through real things. I mean, they do super ordinary things on Sunday, Monday nights, you know, playing ball, but they're regular people, you know, and they feel and they hurt and they have to make certain decisions that affect their family and loved ones on a daily basis. So just to kind of get a snapshot of that and see the you know, the different and various you know, situations that these players are put in when they come into big money. I mean, their life changes automatically, like instantaneously. Right at the draft and after the draft, life changes. And so those kinds of responsibilities that are getting put on these young men that don't really they're really getting a crash course in learning on the fly with millions. It's a lot of pressure.
Who's telling these stories more? You, The Rock, others? Because obviously y'all have the kind of background where y'all can speak to those kind of things. What about others on the staff?
Wait, so you mean?
I'm just talking about, I know the producers obviously have a role, they have a very big role in formulating the storylines. Right. But how much input do y'all have with
Well, I believe that's the teamwork part of this production. I mean, the producers to the writers, and they give it to the actors. And the actors bring certain qualities and realness and authenticity to every character. And that's why chemistry is such a big deal. I mean, you guys have it here, you know, and once you start flowing together with the words that are coming off of the page, you make it your own, you know, in the team concept. So I believe Dwayne it's really close to his art because he's transitioned beautifully from a athlete, you know, to actor, to another occupation. And so it's this role for him in particular is very close. You know, it's close to home. And a lot of times that's harder to play too.
I'm sure you get this all the time because Denzel Washington's son, you can act. I mean, you are a talented actor.
You are.
I thought that before I knew you were. I think Michelle Beal or Marcellus Wiley said, "Oh yeah, that's Denzel Washington's son." Oh yeah, okay, I get it. But you can act. All-time leading rusher at Morehouse. You even get to play out the fantasy of playing in the NFL through Ballers. I'm sure it has. But has anything bad ever happened to you?
Well, I mean, listen.
Girls all like you. I hear that all the time.
I mean, I sabotage many relationships up through the paranoia of trust issues or whatnot. But no, I'm very blessed. I'm a lucky individual to have two functional, active parents in my life, and big time supporters of me.
Ever get a paper cut?
I mean, listen, I've lived a broken clavicle, a couple concussions, you know. Yeah,
a girl ever break up with you?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I feel a little bit better. No. Can we move on? And it's a lie.
Yeah, I got you. Acting, football, which one was your passion?
Well, I guess both, really. Acting, I wanted to do my entire life. I saw my father do Othello, Shakespeare in the Park, when I was 5, and I fell in love with the language. And I was reluctant. My reluctance stemmed from my relationship, you know, and nepotism in the business. And so I used my rebellious quest, surge, crusade, I used football for that. because it gave me my sense of identity, my identity card, and I earned my own scholarship. You know, I paid for my way through school, and I got the respect from teammates, from coaches, on my own merit, through hard work and results on the football field. And those kinds of lessons I learned, especially in the business, the business of the NFL. Curtis Martin told me the hardest part about the NFL isn't playing, it's everything else. And I didn't understand that at first. He told me when I was still in school. And I realized later when I got there, all the distractions and what you have to deal with. Again, that's what our show really hits home with, especially with my character. All the distractions surrounding, it's almost like your sanctuary. When you get to the field or get to the facility, it's like, now I can just do what I've been doing since I was 5 years old.
What do you say when you look at today's NFL players? Some of the issues, fair or not, that just an abundance of them find themselves getting into. I mean, whether it's you, whether it's Dwayne Johnson or anybody else, what do you say to guys that are blessed enough to be in the NFL today about what they need to do to avoid some of those pitfalls, whether it's through the show or just talking here right now? What do you say to them?
Well, I think the word that comes to mind is humility. I think if you can humble yourself and realize all the work that you've done to get to this point, so why would you blow it on a couple of decisions, that can blow everything you've worked for? So to appreciate where you are, I think it takes humility, in my opinion. And that's what the character's dealing with this season. Discernment is another word. Really, how do I set myself up after ball? And listen, I bought a flat screen TV with my first NFL paycheck, and I felt like I was stupid, and I'm pretty good with my money. But that's what happens. And when you wanted to be there, I wanted that job since I was 5 years old. I don't know if y'all have dreamt about being on this stage since y'all were 5, but it does something to your psyche. It does something to you emotionally when you get that call. So, emotions run high, and sometimes, and you're young as well. So I'd say be responsible. And to be responsible, you got to be humble and understand where you are, in life, and how many kids look up to you. Because you were that kid once looking up to the Randall Cunninghams of the world and the Emmitt Smiths of the world.
Had to get Cunningham in there.
Had to, baby. Y'all were killing them earlier, man. Y'all were killing my Eagles,
I'm telling you,
man.
we were killing the Chip Kelly Eagles, not the Eagles prior to that. You talk about Randall Cunningham. Was that under Buddy Ryan?
It's just the laundry. It's just the same laundry. It's not the same players.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
same laundry.
Yeah, but it's the culture, man. I'm a diehard, and my father's a Dallas fan, Dallas Cowboys.
Oh God,
you're all over the NFC East. Both got it wrong. I'm Giants.
How was that? But you were rebellious.
Yeah. You see, man, by nature. When I saw Randall take off, man, with them strides, I was like, I want to be that.
Yeah,
I got to do it, and I stopped growing, so I couldn't.
Well, I got love for your dad, but damn, I didn't know he was a Dallas Cowboy.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that. I have to change my thinking.
Oh, boy,
Dallas Cowboys.
Listen, nobody's perfect.
Oh, wow.
John David, thank you so much for being here with us. And discernment and humility, that's powerful. And we'll also be seeing you on the big screen coming up pretty soon too. We can't wait for that. Martavis Bryant will be working this fall after all. The Steelers receiver, who's banned for 2016, as you know, due to multiple offenses of the NFL drug policy, will spend the year training in Henderson, Nevada, and he's going to volunteer coach the wide receivers on a local high school football team. This according to his agent. Stephen A., do you like, love, or hate Bryant coaching high school football?
I hate it.
Really?
I don't like it at all. Again, I'm a man about second chances. I don't think this guy should be banned from the NFL. I don't think we should hate him or anything like that. That's not where I'm going. What I'm saying is that if I am the parent of a kid, while in most situations we think that it's great for you to be exposed to somebody who's going through the trials and tribulations, can speak directly to the pitfalls you need to avoid, etc., etc. That's after they've succeeded in overcoming their own ailments, addictions, or whatever the case may be. This dude is in the midst of a 1 year full season long suspension for violating the league's drug program. This is in the aftermath of being suspended for 4 games in 2015 for drug violations. This is in the aftermath of going to John Lucas in Houston, trying to get himself rehabilitated. On several occasions, this man has been warned and he has been penalized, and he still has not been able to discipline himself enough to remain in the NFL. And yet you're going to go around kids. What the hell are you going to teach them? How to puff and pass? I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see that. As far as I'm concerned, show me that you have the discipline necessary to do the right things before you're exposed to kids where you're teaching them what? He can definitely teach them the game of football. Martavis Bryant is a big-time quarterback. And I'll even confess.
Wide out.
I'm sorry, wide out. I apologize. He's big time. He's big time. An elite number 2 option. And I will confess that I'm a bit emotional about this because I'm a diehard Steelers fan.
Yep.
And I believe that if Martavis Bryant were healthy and on the Steelers roster, they would be going to the Super Bowl this year. I think they would be a virtual lock to pull it off, despite their question marks on the defensive side of the ball, because offensively, they're that elite. So I am pretty peeved. I am pretty ticked off that this dude finds himself suspended for the year. And I'll openly confess that might shade my judgment just a touch. But just a touch. Principally speaking, I have no problem with him being around the kids. I have a problem with the timing. You haven't proven that you're worthy enough to be around kids, teaching them how to act. You're not just coaching. You know how kids are. You can go there and counsel them and talk to them about football. But because of your greatness as a talent and your stature as a star in the NFL, they're going to walk off that field and come talk to you and lean on you for guidance, counseling, wisdom, etc. Because that's the way it works with aspiring athletes. And what the hell are you going to do then? What are you in position to do then? I don't like this one bit. If this were a year or two from now, yes. Right now, while in the throes of this suspension, he has no business around high school kids.
I totally disagree. I love this. What else is this guy supposed to do that's more constructive? First of all, he keeps getting suspended, as I keep bringing up, because the NFL has an antiquated drug testing policy. They choose to test for marijuana. They take money from alcohol companies. They advertise beer on TV. Worse for you than marijuana, according to all the studies. Societal impact I'm talking about, for sure. I find it hypocritical that they test, as apparently I say every day, because this keeps coming up with issues with players. It's hypocritical of them to choose to test for marijuana. I don't want to hear about, well, one's legal, one's illegal. The fact that prohibition remained against marijuana when it ended against alcohol was an outrageous political fact of the time that I don't want to get into it right now. Anyway, the guy's suspended for a year. You know what he knows how to do better than anything else? Play football. You know what he's going to do with his time? Teach kids to play football. I mean, like, look, Snoop has a past. Snoop famously would not pass an NFL drug test. And Snoop is involved with youth football at various points in his life. And if my kid, as long as they're not driving a car or something, if my kid was a little football player and Snoop wanted to show him some stuff, I'd be fine with that. I don't see why Martavis Bryant's different.
As somebody who knows Snoop, who has spoken to Snoop on many occasions, I promise you that Snoop Dogg, despite what he does, would not condone those players doing it.
You think Martavis Bryant would?
No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying to you is Snoop would sit there and say to them, as archaic and draconian as these rules are, these are the rules. Don't mess yourself up by getting yourself involved in the situation.
What makes you think that Martavis Bryant would be like, hey, don't do what I did? I would assume that would be his position.
I absolutely believe he would do it. I'm just saying it would have more cachet coming from somebody like Snoop, because Snoop wasn't stupid enough to get himself suspended and cost himself money. That's the point.
I am not going to be mad at a guy who wants to spend his time.
I'm saying the high school.
He knows best.
No, I don't blame
high school kids.
Martavis Bryant is doing the right thing for himself. I'm saying if I'm that high school, I wouldn't want him doing it. I'm saying if I'm them, not him, he's not doing it.
I take him wrong. I'm the principal of the high school. Come on, Martavis. I got a top flight NFL talent coaching my kids.
Hell no.
I don't think
Hell no.
Hey, Martavis, will you tell him to stay off drugs? Yes, okay, come on.
This subject. In an interview with Charlie Rosen on today's FastBreak.com, Phil Jackson said today's players lack the skills to run the triangle offense effectively, saying, quote, today's players simply lack the skills to play the triangle. They know how to play one-on-one, catch and shoot, and they've mastered crossover dribbles, spins, playing off of screens, and step-back shots. They don't know how to execute things like inside reverse pivots and other basic footwork. They have no sense of timing or organization. They don't really know how to play 5-on-5 basketball. It's strictly generational. So now we all know Jeff Hornacek plans to run a version of the triangle this upcoming season. Oh, Stephen A., your reaction?
My reaction is that Phil Jackson absolutely disgusts me. This New York Knicks squad under his regime is 49-115. I'm going to repeat that. 49-115. He disgusts me because he's not wrong, but he's disingenuous. If you just look at the quote on its face, he's talking about the players. He's not taking into account everything that comes with it. The age at which they enter play in the NBA. NBA coaches who are not necessarily teaching as much as they used to because they don't have the same level of security, so they're looking for the closest thing to finished products that they can find. College coaches, AAU coaches, everybody looking to get themselves in a position where they can cash in. No player knew. I remember when Phil Jackson took over Chicago, he had to nurture and help Michael Jordan along in terms of at least psychologically adopting a mindset, conducive to what Phil, with Tex Winters, the architect of the triangle, wanted to install and implement, okay? These are the kind of things that happen. It's why coaches exist. It's why assistant coaches exist. It's why a general manager exists who hires the coaches, and you're working in concert with one another to teach the players. So it's not about them not knowing. It's about what you are teaching and what you are enforcing and what you are implementing. Phil Jackson. Did it ever occur to Phil Jackson that maybe, just maybe, had you decided to coach bad hips and all, instead of having a person in Derek Fisher who never coached a day in his life come and coach the New York Knicks for the first season and a half, did it ever occur to you that they might have a better knowledge of the triangle at that particular moment in time? And then, by the way, Phil Jackson, Mr. 11 rings, no doubt. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen for 6 of them. Kobe and Shaq for the other, for 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then Kobe with Pau Gasol and the crew for the other 2. So, again, we're talking about you having some of the greatest players in NBA history. But even them, you had to teach them what you wanted. And so I just think that, again, he's not factually wrong in terms of the players, but it's not like they can't play or it's their fault or they're ignorant or they lack intellect. It's that you play for coaches who implement systems that don't teach these kind of things. And I think it's incredibly disingenuous and disrespectful for the players to just throw a quote out there like that without, without elaborating on exactly what's transpired.
Stephen A. and Knicks fans, kids, let Uncle Max do this for you. And Stephen A., I'm going to turn that frown upside down.
Okay.
This is my gift to you going into the weekend, Molly. This is my. We're going to have a happy Stephen A. Smith after our first week of shows together. This is my gift to you, Stephen A. It's not that you're wrong about what you said, but that's not what's going on here. This is the good news, Knicks fans. Good news, Knicks fans. What Phil Jackson here is doing is admitting the triangle ain't going to work. Now, Popovich uses elements of the triangle, and when Phil was coaching Kobe and Pau, they went to a lot of pick and roll, right? There's no like one system that people just use religiously without consideration for their personnel and the way the game is played. The spread pick and roll and the increase in three-point shots and efficiency of three-point shots and analytics, etc., with the rules that exploits the rules changes in the NBA, zone, hand checking, all this stuff has made the triangle antiquated if that's your primary basis of your offense. Now, if you're Phil Jackson, can you admit that? No, your ego is going to be far too wrapped up in it. It's too much of a sunk cost. So what you have to do to protect your own ego here, I don't think he's doing it intentionally, is saying, well, my system would work if they really stuck to it. The problem is, from a very young age, they haven't incorporated the right kind of skills in order to run it. This is his out, Stephen A., and we have to give it to him. You can't hold his feet to the fire. Oh, wait a minute, you're wrong. You said the triangle was work, and you're just wrong. We have to give him this out, because if you're a Knicks fan, the message you should be getting from this is, don't worry, it ain't going to be all about the triangle. Phil is capitulating. He's admitting it has to be something else. let him do it. Who cares if it looks like some player on the team is kind of collateral damage in terms of reputation a little bit, or some generation of players? That's what the crusty old-timers always say. Let him move away from the triangle, exploit the resources on the team, and he has some now as well as possible, and let happy days come back to the Knicks.
You are on the record saying that his ego plays a role in it because he's not willing to admit certain things.
Yes.
That shows that that's a huge problem, because his ego is the one that got him in trouble with it to begin with. Because if you think for 1 second that Phil Jackson just learned over the last few months that people can't play the triangle.
Yes, he did.
Like it. No, he did not learn
yes,
just over the last few months. He's been known this, okay? The fact of the matter
is, when Stephen A says he's been known this, that means source.
Without question.
Let me read between the lines.
Question. They're not only that.
Back also here.
Let's also remember something else.
Why
Phil
is he
Jackson, the
executive, for so long?
Phil Jackson, the executive, could have had Dwayne Wade had he not signed Courtney Lee. Keep that in mind. You didn't have to give Courtney Lee $50 million. Dwayne Wade went there for 47 in Chicago.
We need quick context here, though. These comments were made in December, just published today, to clear that up.
Okay. I appreciate that. There we go. There you go. So let me get this straight.
So he's known it for about 8 months. That's still good news.
So he's known it for about 8 months. You know what makes it worse? That same Phil Jackson is the guy that tried to sell New York on Kurt Rambis and implore Kurt Rambis to teach the triangle in the aftermath of what he now has reported.
Kurt Rambis is interim. He brings in Hornacek, and Hornacek is a guy who looks, I have 3 point guards. Fine, well, Eric Bledsoe.
Phil Jackson tried to keep Rambis.
Whatever, but now he's got Hornacek who's willing to use whatever's on the team. That's what he did. That's good news. You got a flexible, interesting coach. And you got a president who admits that he can't win with a triangle, essentially.
The Knicks are going to be better because Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah and Courtney Lee are going to make them better. But the reality is that they're still not going to compete for the championship.
What's it going to take to make you smile about the Knicks?
First week in the books. Thanks for joining us. Know you left a good situation. It's been fun. Stephen A., always a pleasure. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Catch First Take weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific on ESPN2. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you all on Monday.
This weekend, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, and the National League Central leading Cubs face Robinson Cano and the Seattle Mariners.
Robinson Cano.
Saturday at 1:45 Eastern.